Welcome to my final presentation on Ebola, a West African epidemic. The discovery of Ebola hit Central Africa in 1976 when two separate outbreaks of hemorrhagic fever occurred. The first outbreak occurred in September in the Democratic Republic of Congo, formerly Zaire, in a village near the Ebola River. The second outbreak occurred in South Sudan in June of the same year. Initially, the outbreaks were assumed to be an isolated event from an individual who traveled between these two locations. Scientists discovered the incidence was actually confirmed from two genetically distinct viruses, Zaire Ebola virus and Sudan Ebola virus. Because of the two independently produced sources, the need for containment was established. Once it was suspected that a viral strain of Ebola had infected two separate countries, the race to contain the outbreak began. Scientists first began studying several animal species to identify a host for transmission. The viral strain was unlike anything seen before, which begged the question if an animal species was being unaffected by the viral strain, unlike humans. Thus, the virus is likely maintained in the environment by spreading from host to host or through intermediate hosts or vectors. Early theorists argued that Ebola was caused by contact with an infected animal, such as a fruit bat or a non-human primate. African fruit bats are likely involved in the spread of Ebola virus and may even be the source animal. Scientists continue to search for conclusive evidence of the bat's role in transmission of Ebola. Recently, in a strain known as the Bombali Ebola virus in Sierra Leone, bats were the known vector. This was the first true evidence that bats might be the transmission known cause. The virus belongs to the family of Filoviridae. It produces symptoms that are similar to many other illnesses, common to the region, such as influenza, typhoid, and malaria. Once one falls ill to Ebola, they often have no idea that they might have contracted other various illnesses. This caused medical personnel to reclassify Ebola to indicate when individual symptoms may change over a 21-day period. First, dry symptoms are seen within the first few days, while wet symptoms are seen in the later stages as one becomes sicker. Within the scientific community, it has been understood that the immediate cause of Ebola is through direct contact with blood or other bodily fluids, such as semen, feces, or vomit, of infected humans, animals, or objects. This can also include close contact with deceased Ebola virus victims, which are also highly contagious. Throughout Africa, Ebola has been viewed differently. Traditionally, with witch doctors and healers aided in the sick and dying. Subsequently, with the outbreak of Ebola, it brought Western medicine for the first time to many small villages. It was difficult for many Africans to adapt to changing practices and differing ideals and norms, which led to severe distrust of Western and modern medical personnel and practices. In December of 2013, the World Health Organization issued a new outbreak of Ebola virus in the eastern sector of the Republic of Guinea. Cases quickly spread across Guinea and into neighboring Republic of Liberia and along the Ivory Coast. By April of 2014, 242 suspected cases had resulted in a total of 147 deaths in Guinea and Liberia. The causative agent had been identified as an outlier strain of Zaire Ebola virus. On August 8, 2014, the WHO declared the deteriorating situation in West Africa a public health emergency of international concern. This is often designated only for events with the risk of potential international spread or that require a coordinated international response. Over the duration of the epidemic, Ebola spread to 7 more countries: Italy, Mali, Nigeria, Senegal, Spain, the UK, and the United States. Later, secondary infection, mainly in the healthcare setting, occurred in Italy, Mali, Nigeria, and the United States. The scope of this outbreak, both in terms of cases and geography, can be attributed to the unprecedented circulation of Ebola in crowded urban areas, increased mobilization across borders, and conflicts between key infection control practices and the prevailing cultural and traditional practices in West Africa. This photo details personal protective equipment, or PPE, worn by medical personnel while in Africa. The PPE used is only to protect medical staff from contracting the virus, but others as well. This flowchart shows how a single introduction of Ebola virus from a young child can quickly sweep through a village in Guinea and then spill over into neighboring cities? The medical community has treated the disease with the utmost precaution. There has been an endless fight to get a handle on the condition within the western region of Africa, and an active attempt at a vaccine is currently being tested to limit the number of deaths that this disease has caused. Currently, the best known treatment option is supportive care of rehydration with oral or intravenous fluids. This can give an individual the best survival against the virus. However, a range of potential treatments, including blood products, immune and drug therapies, are currently being evaluated. In Africa, Ebola has created psychosocial consequences due to feelings of shame or guilt and stigmatization or blame from their communities. Some infected individuals have been threatened, attacked, evicted, left behind by, or excluded from their families and communities because they were seen as tainted and dangerous. Fear and stigma of Ebola are contributed to by cultural beliefs such as being a bewitched disease with those affected at fault or deserving their illness. Many of these widespread fears are due to a high infection risk, lack of information, or misinformation. Abroad, when many hear the word Ebola, they instantly think of a pandemic or a healthcare emergency. With the high likelihood of contracting the disease through physical touch and a society where contact is in many different social interactions, the fear becomes real that one could easily contract the disease from everyday behavior. The threat didn't seem like it could cross borders outside of Africa, but in 2014 the virus came to the United States. As with any illness, countries aren't immune, and as travel becomes more accessible than ever before, it is only a matter of time before a deadly virus could end up even in our backyard. I hope you enjoyed my presentation and you thought it was informative. Thank you.